Hi, everyone. Today I'll be introducing our first campaign as the Pod Initiative called Hope in Motion. This is something that I'm doing in collaboration with Lucia Yap here, who is currently fighting and battling cancer. And so, Lucia, thank you for joining me. Um, so, how about let's start with who Lucia is?
Um, wow, that's like a big question. But um, I'm just a regular mom. I'm a swim mom, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
Colin here was my both of my kids' swim coach for a long time, and we were part of the Burnaby Mountain Mantis. My daughter also plays volleyball, so I'm a volleyball mom. Um, I I like to think of myself as a community builder. And what that means to me is basically like wherever I go in terms of these activities or whatever, I like to foster community with the participants and the people. It just makes your whole experience a million times better. You create friendships, you create, you know, deep connections with people that you never expected you would. And to me, and even through this course of my illness or whatever, it's been a godsend because everybody reaches out, and you don't feel like you're so alone. So that has been great. On the side, I like to. I did work, but I'm no longer working at the moment. But I do like to make fondant decorations for cakes, and so I like to do that, and that brings me joy. I also play volleyball, so it's really exciting that my daughter is now playing volleyball. So I'm really excited about being part of her whole team experience, club experience, and all that stuff. And that brings me joy too. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. And, obviously, I think cancer being the central cause that we're trying to raise money for and discuss. I'm curious, or maybe if you'd like to share that experience and how that all started.
Yeah, so for me, like when I turned 45, I was like, well, I'm middle age now officially, so maybe I should go for a full on review just to make sure everything is going well. So at that time, when I did see my doctor and we did a full physical. And at that time, the doctor felt like a lump on my breast. And then she's like, okay, well, we'll get it checked out. And so I did the ultrasound, the mammogram and the ultrasound, and both came back negative, meaning like there was nothing to worry about. So I was like, okay, no problem. But then I did notice that like it grew some. And so I was a little bit not alarmed, but I'm like, well, it could be a benign cyst or whatever it is. So I went back to the doctor and I said, I think it grew. And then she's agreed. And then I went to same thing, mammogram and ultrasound. But after the ultrasound, basically it was like, we need a biopsy like now. So we went to the biopsy, and after the biopsy, basically it was, deemed that I did have breast cancer, like stage 2. It's lobular, estrogen positive. So lobular means it's not like in a mass, it's more like dispersed. So I think it's probably, that's why it was like harder to see on the original, ultrasound. But having said that, like, I don't think we're taught as women, I don't think we're taught to, when you do a breast self-exam, for example, that like, what does it actually feel like? I don't think nobody teaches you that. So, everything was like very new and it came very quickly. I went on and I had a double mastectomy, only because I was still young, like I was 45, and I didn't want the chance of it coming back to the other side. So I did that. I did radiation, and then I was on hormone therapy. So basically, because my cancer was positive for estrogen, it means that estrogen in my body would be feeding the cancer. So so the point is to reduce as much estrogen as possible.
Right.
So that's what the drugs were doing. So that went on, and in the beginning, I mean, besides having had the mastectomy, it was actually a pretty big, surgery, because I decided on having reconstruction at the same time. And basically, I had the tram procedure, which uses my gut fat to make my new breasts. So like it's not implants. So it's like it's actually my own tissue.
Right.
So but along with that, it included basically the incision was basically from side to side on my stomach plus my chest. So it was like a pretty big recovery, and I think you remember some of that too, because the timing of how things ended up was that my kids were swimming in provincials and we were in Kamloops. So like it was like literally after my surgery, within 2 weeks, we went to Kamloops for their provincials competition, which I managed, and it was good. Because I wasn't on like chemo per se at the time, I didn't lose my hair. So like, in the end, like I was strong. Like I worked out before I had my surgery, so I thought that I was in pretty good physical condition. And then afterwards, I started to exercise as well. I started running like after my 6 weeks was up. And I think that was like really good to keep your strength up and also to deal with side effects of radiation. So I had very minimal effects, and I think that the big reason for it was that I was like active.
Right.
Yeah. And also like, you're a mom too, so it's not like you really don't think about yourself as much. It's just like, this child has activities, like you go from here to there, you make dinner, you work, and you do all those things. Plus I live with my parents, so I have aging parents, so looking after them. So all of those things, like I think that my mind just went into coasting mode, which was just like not really think too much, or just keep going, like one foot in front of the other and just keep going.
Yeah.
So that's how it was for a while, until maybe about a year and a half ago, where basically now it came back. So it went into my bones, it went into a little bit of a lip. So yeah, so the drugs weren't working, and then so what means is that I had to get on a new set of drugs. And that was like last spring break. And then basically the drug that I was going to be on, it had just been FDA approved in the US the previous November. So it was going to be available in Canada, but not quite out in pharmacies. And this is why I say like BC Cancer is really great, and my oncologist as well. Like they liaise with the pharmaceutical company, which is AstraZeneca, to provide this drug to people that need it, even though it's not fully available in the pharmacies. So in that sense, so that's what I was on. I started that drug like maybe in April or May, like last year. However, that didn't last long, as I don't know, you might have remembered, but basically I think in July, I had this really severe headache, and I didn't know. I never really thought that it had anything to do with cancer, to be honest. But I just thought, oh, maybe I just have like this really. I've never had migraines, but like maybe this is a migraine. So I was, doing what I could at the time, but it was almost very debilitating type of headache. Like I couldn't sleep very well at night because my head hurt so much, and it was like very crushing type of headache. Part of my protocol for my chemo drug at the time was to basically have an injection and then take these pills, right? So when I went for my injection, the nurse was like, "You don't look so good." And then at that time, she checked with my oncologist, and then they said, okay, give her the shot, but then have her go to the ER. So I went to the ER, and then, so when I got there, basically they did the full like neurological workup, but I also had double vision too, so which is one of, like, it's not a great thing. Once they did it, they're like, oh, there's just too much pressure. Like the cerebrospinal fluid is like too much pressure in your brain. So they did like a spinal tap kind of thing to release the pressure and then take some of the fluid out. I felt immediately better, which was great. But then it happened again. I guess it built up again. So then when that happened, I also had a little bit of a seizure. And so they had to do the spinal tap again. But when I had the seizure, actually, I was out. Like, I don't recall what had happened. But the next thing I know is that basically my husband got a call from the neurologist saying, well, we can't just keep doing a spinal tap all the time. So we're going to have to think of something else. And that was to put in a shunt. So basically now I had like an incision here, and there's a shunt basically that goes from my brain and drains into my stomach. So any excess fluid buildup doesn't cause this massive headache. I felt really well after. But as you can tell, like I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. And, before then I was like playing volleyball. I was like active, like, doing all these things. But it is pretty surprising how much mobility you lose after staying in bed for 2 weeks. And so when I got home, I had to use a walker. I couldn't walk too far. I had to use a wheelchair. And so that felt really different for me. And then not only that is like, so the chemotherapy that I was on wasn't working. So then they had to switch me over to another chemotherapy. And this one is like an IV type. So this is the first time for me to do an IV type. And so with that, like I came home. What was difficult, it was definitely the fact that I was like really tired all the time. I guess just adjusting to the new chemo as well. I'm actually lucky that I didn't feel a lot of nausea or anything like that. But appetite is definitely lower. So like I'd eat very little. I didn't really feel like eating. And then again, the mobility was an issue. But as time went on, after I think the second chemotherapy treatment, that's when my hair started to fall off. And to be honest, like up until now, although I have had cancer since 2019, I never really felt like I had it because like life continued and it was normal. Like I still did the things that I wanted. I played volleyball. We went on trips. I went to all my kids' swim meets and all of those things. But like this time, I'm physically weaker. I'm physically more tired. And I also lost my hair. So now I look like a patient, So I think that was a big emotional thing for me to deal with as well.
Right. Would you say that it wasn't really there even during your first diagnosis, that you never really had that emotional reaction to it or response to it?
I did have an emotional response, but I don't think it was as bad as this time around.
I see.
Like, obviously, getting a cancer diagnosis is not the best news.
Right.
And then you think about life in the future and all these things. So those things cross your mind. But at this time, I was like so intent on what's the next step, and what is the next thing to do, that I wasn't too focused on like, will I be around for this, or will I, will I be here when these events happen, or whatever. Or let's put it this way, I didn't feel that like death was really staring me at the face. Like, I'm like, that's still far away. Whereas like this time, it felt different because I look sicker, and then now it's like, oh, now this is real. So I think that was the main difference. Yeah.
Wow.
So it took me a little while to deal with all of this. And again, it's not something that, people tell me like the first time that I went through the cancer diagnosis, oh, Lucia, you're so strong and all this stuff. And it's, yeah, I am. But, there's a part of me that is like, am I? Right? And then so it's not that you second guess yourself, but you also like, you don't want to let people down by feeling sorry for yourself. So you just kind of like, you either push it aside and you keep going. But I think that at this time around, I actually had to deal with some of those emotions for sure. And then so that was the internal work that I did. And I think that's really valuable for any cancer patient, right? But like mindset is something that is so difficult. Like, it's really easy to say, well, don't think that way. Or it's really easy to say, well, just think of something else, but it's a concentrated effort on every single day, because the thoughts are there and the thoughts come through your mind. And then, sometimes they're not the best thoughts, right? This is what I learned, is that basically it's okay to feel those things. It's okay to feel crappy. It's okay to feel devastated. That's your feeling, and it's okay for those things to happen. But the key is not to linger, and the key is to say, well, what are some of the things that I can do, myself, to help myself, or really be focused on being grateful and thankful every day for even the small wins, the small little things. So I think I've been focusing a lot on that. And what you tell yourself, right? Like, for example, every day, if you tell yourself, oh, the end is near, then it will be near. But for me, it's not that I have a lofty idea of, I'm very well aware of where my illness is at. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm still making plans. I'm not going to say, like, we had some friends like, yeah, so next December we're going to go to Hawaii again. I'm like, yep, I'm going to be there. So I'm not afraid to be making those plans or thinking it that far ahead. Right? Because I feel like if you're stuck in the what might be or what might not be, then you're really not living. Right? Yeah. And so in order to live life to the fullest or whatever it is, you got to be present, you got to be here in the now. And then you got to make those plans as if you're going to be here. And if you're not, then that's what it is, right? But that's the main thing that I've learned. So, and then what you tell yourself is really important. So I have some daily affirmations that I tell myself. And it's not just telling yourself, it's like really believing in it. So I say to myself every day that I'm healthy and I'm strong. And that I'm healing my cancers every day. And I say that several times during the day when it strikes or whatever, or when I have something not negative, but like if I have a negative thought, then I'll say those things to myself. And And I feel like there has been a shift for me in how I feel about the whole thing. And I think my outlook has gotten better. I'm not feeling so upset or like very, thinking about what might be, what might not be.
Right.
Yeah, because, those are normal things and it'll happen to everyone. But it could also be great things, right? Like, I don't have to follow exactly what Google tells me what my prognosis is going to be, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm like, so what if it says, whatever on Google? Like, I'm not gonna pay attention to it, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna make plans for the future, and live my life to the fullest.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I think when you told me about all of this the first time, I think it came across really powerful in terms of how you can shut off a lot of those thoughts, especially with social media kind of adding so much noise, I guess, to some degree where it's kind of hard to avoid it. Now I'm curious, you came back from Hawaii. You had a trip prior to your most recent one. What is Hawaii to you? Like, what? And this is a big topic that I know you love, and so I want to explore it, especially, how it's affected your healing, your mindset.
For me, there's something to be said about, I mean, and I don't know, maybe I was Hawaiian in my previous life, I don't know. But for me, one of the most powerful things that happened to me was a couple of trips ago. I did go with my family and my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law went golfing and she met this Hawaiian priest as part of her foursome. And he does like outrigger canoe paddling, and he's very active in his community. And he with the true aloha spirit, he basically said, hey, we can take you guys paddling if you want to go. And since I had never been, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's try this. So we went, we met up with him, an amazing person. Like, I feel like he's very genuine, and like that true like love for the land, love for the ocean, love for the people, like everything, it just exudes out of him. And basically he took us outrigger canoeing, but just before we went, we all held hands in a circle, and then our feet were we're in the sand, and then he did a prayer. He thanked ocean, the nature, and everything else, and then basically he had a prayer in Hawaiian. I don't know what happened, but I felt some sort of like a release that I actually got quite overwhelmed with at the time. And I felt like something was just like coming out and just draining out of my body into the sand. And it was, to me, it was like really powerful. And since that time, I've been to Hawaii 2 more times.
Right. Sorry to interrupt, but was that experience before the original diagnosis?
No, it was
after.
it was after.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it was when I was having my blisters and stuff in my feet, so it had come back.
Right. Okay.
So so yeah, it was a really, like I felt like an emotional release or something. I can't really put my finger on what it was, but it felt very good. Like I never felt so good after that trip. And then so since then I've been back 2 more times. And then I did meet with him. And I'm not a super religious person, but like I now attend his like 6 a.m. Hawaii time prayers over Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that every time, I don't attend it every day, they have it every day, but I don't attend every day. But it's interesting that the day that I decide to pick up and then turn on the Zoom and then like log in, there's something that they say that kind of applies to me. It's like, it's very serendipitous, or, and then that affects me. and brings light to things that I'm like, oh, like I didn't think of it that way. So I'm feeling very connected to that. But most anything is just like being on the water, in the ocean, the sand, and obviously the sun. Like I didn't have hair until I went to Hawaii in December. And then all of a sudden now it started to grow. And like I feel so good while I'm there. Like, and I can't describe it. Like I just feel this connection to the land. I feel connection to the nature. I feel connection to the culture. I feel connection to everything. And I feel like that positive, like it's a positive energy, positive vibe that I think feeds my soul.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I want to go back again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure nothing here compares to that, but I'm curious, what have you brought back from there that's kind of that you've been able to apply in, cold Vancouver weather that has kind of helped the day to day?
Do you know, like it's interesting. Like I took a lot of video in the beach, basically just like the waves crashing in.
Yeah.
And on a day like today where it's like super sunny, and then I'm out like walking the dog, I just turn on the video that I took at the beach and then just listen to the waves crashing, and that makes me feel like better,
Right.
like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like it's a mindset, but sometimes like maybe little gimmicks there to kind of help me get there more.
Bring you back.
Yeah. Or like I was having like acai bowls every day. And then so we got back home and then my husband and I were like, let's go make some acai bowls. So we actually went and we actually bought, ingredients or whatever. And then we're like, yeah. But, it just doesn't feel the same because it's not as warm. I think the heat really, really helps too. But, not saying that Vancouver is not beautiful. Vancouver is beautiful. But the magnetic pull that I have to the Hawaiian Islands is like much greater than Vancouver, let's say.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And, I think something that, if we were to expand this to somebody else who's dealing with cancer, but maybe just like an illness, what is something that you've been doing that's maybe outside of Hawaii that you think, because something that has been getting more and more popular is the idea of positive psychology. It's the idea that I think psychology as a topic has been very negative for so long, whether it's, constantly diagnosing yourself. You're alluding to it earlier with Google, how people are self-diagnosing or they go to Google and they're like, oh, I definitely have that. And it's super negative. Where, it seems like up to this point, you've leveraged positivity as a tool.
So one of the things like for me that has helped me a lot is like through the internet, I guess I ran into, there's this doctor called Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about a lot of there's an energy that can you can harness an energy to actually have physical positive outcomes for yourself. And obviously, is based on like meditation. And so that's one of the things that I by no means I'm not like the greatest meditating person. I don't really know if I'm doing it right or whatever, but it's just trying. So I have like these guided meditations or whatever that I follow. And I try to like do the breathing exercise, and then it really positive affirmations and things like that. Again, you're not losing anything by trying, and that's the thing. And So this doctor, he has like seminars and things like that. And then there's testimonials of people that been to his seminars and have had stage 4 cancer, that all of a sudden, like, they have spontaneous healing or something, and they have no evidence of disease.
Wow.
So like you think and you see, obviously they have gone through the whole cancer process, and then you wonder, like, how does that happen? Like, really, right? And the thing is, if you doubt it and say, well, yeah, that only happened to, maybe that's just a hoax, or, that only happened to that person, but, can it be replicated? I don't know, right? Then I think you shut yourself down from that opportunity from ever happening, right? So yeah, he's got several books. I've been like trying to read some of this stuff, and I think it's been really helpful for me. And then basically, I'm trying to keep myself open to what the universe may bring, and obviously, I know what I want, which is like, I want to live for another 30 years, but maybe that might not happen, right? But if it's, I don't know, 5, 10 more years, lovely, and so, but the thing is, it's not going to happen if you don't believe. And then if you're not in that mindset to receive it.
Right.
So in order to be in that mindset to receive it, you can't be a negative Nancy, right? You have to be positive. You have to be, have that feeling of aloha. That's what it's in Hawaii. Basically, aloha means lots of things, but it means hello, but it also means love. It means like how you deal with one another. Reach out to those that may need help. Like, even though, like, I'm sick, but it doesn't hurt me to reach out to another person. And this has happened, while we're having, like, I was having chemo, and there was another person in there, and then we conversed a little bit and looked like he was having a tough time. So I got up, I gave him a hug, right? And then that's something that if I was in his position, I would have wanted it. You know what I mean? So that didn't cost me anything.
Right.
It didn't. It's just, cancer is a club that nobody wants to be a part of. And then when you're club members, like, why not reach out to each other? And it may not be the exact same thing that you're going through, but the majority of the stuff is kind of on the same lines, right? And so if you can help one another, then why not? So is that whole, you put out what you get kind of thing. And, one of the things that was, to me, when I was in the hospital, that was like really, really impactful, was our Burnaby Mountain Mantis family. And, I had so many visitors. I literally had people lined up, because at one point there could only be 1 or 2 persons allowed per time.
Right.
And there were people lining up to see me while I was in the hospital. And I was like extremely overwhelmed because, yeah, we're friends. We see each other every summer. We're not like super, super close, like that we hang out all the time. But I felt that it was so great that we had a deeper connection, that when I was sick in the hospital, like, they came to visit. They spent time with me. They brought me goodies, and that was really overwhelming, but it felt really good. And I'm, as a person, I'm like usually a giver, so it was hard to receive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard to, yeah, but also overwhelmingly thankful for that.
I think for anyone who doesn't know Lucia, I'd say for all the years that I've known her, she's always the first to extend a helping hand. But something that you touched on earlier about being in a club that nobody wants to be in, like, from my point of view, when I saw you dealing with what you're dealing with, I think a part of me was I don't know what the right word is. It might be hesitant. Is, I felt that I didn't know how best to help. And so, like, when we're talking about people reaching out, that's not a club member. Like, how do you think it's best? Like, obviously there is the hospital visits, but I think from my perspective, what I'm trying to get at is it's hard to read if, there's a line that could be crossed. Um, is there anything special about it? Would it just be, how I would approach any other individual who's going through a tough time?
Well, I think for cancer, like, like it really depends on where you are as an individual in terms
Right.
of your journey, right? Like, say for example, when I couldn't walk or whatever, there were like people that said, "Hey, like we can come walk the dog for you," like just little simple things like that, or like we went to this restaurant and we just brought you some food or whatever. Like knowing that, like yes, I am the mother in the household, and
Right.
I that it is tough being a mom and not being able to do stuff, to take care of my family and doing all this stuff. So all those like, not just like coming over to say, "Hey, how you're doing," that's also like really awesome too. If you know anyone that is going through this, like even a text like, "Hey, how you doing?" you know that's like really helpful, because you never know what's happening to that person on that other side,
Right.
right? And so say you may not have talked, like, and this actually happened to me. I had a really, like, I was losing my hair. I was having a really bad time about this whole hair business. I was very fixated on other people that had hair, but I didn't, kind of thing. And I was still dealing with that emotional aspect. And so it was hurtful to, you know, to, to see or hear people talking about hair or whatever. And I didn't feel good. And I was like kind of dwelling in that not feeling good. But that same day, the next day actually, I had 3 people that I hadn't talked to in a long time. One was my boss from work, another person used to work for me, and another friend that reached out to me out of the blue to say, "Hey, Lou, how are things going with you today?" And, and to me, like, if I was closed off to the opportunity, then I wouldn't have recognized that basically, like, the universe was telling me, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, you're feeling like crap today, but you're going to be okay." Because those 3 people extending their, "Hey, how's it going to you today?" like literally like brought me out of the possible downward spiral that I could have gone. You have to be able to receive that and be open to that, right? And to recognize it as well. I was like so thankful. Like honestly, like, that's what I'm saying, is that even if it's just a text or a quick phone call, like, "Hey, how you doing?" or whatever, that's amazing. But like, say for example, if you think that there's other needs maybe that the family in general may have, that it's like, "Hey, I just thought of you," like just somebody thinking about you. Like, my friend made congee for me, like that is just like, when I couldn't eat, right? Like, so we had friends that brought stuff. We had friends that, kids that drew pictures and sent me cards, and, like all of those things are like really valuable. And then it makes you feel good. It uplifts you. Like, obviously, if you're feeling really, really crappy, it might make your day that much little bit better. Everybody that has cancer goes through a different type of journey, right? And not everybody's journey is like mine, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I have to say that, like, although I've been working hard at keeping myself positive and all this stuff, some people just can't do that, right? And then so for people like that, then it's like too much positivity is more like It's like, don't talk to me, right? So so it really depends where everybody's at, right? Like there isn't like one message that basically will take care of it all. But the one thing I would say that is really important is it is mindset. Because with mindset, although that's the hardest, if you're in a negative mindset, it's really hard to climb out of it. But if you're like neutral, then, you know, and then this experience doesn't bring you too far below, then you can make your efforts to come out. You know what I mean? But if you're quite negative, not saying that there is no hope for you. There's always is, but it's always harder. Right. And then basically, I mean, it's always good to know people that are going through similar things because then you can relate to. And then it's not like, it's a different, like getting an advice from someone who doesn't have cancer. Saying like, well, you should just do this. Right. It's like, what do you know? Like, you don't, you know, it doesn't have the same weight, I'd say. That's why it's nice to connect with those that have and then try to be there for each other. Right. Because then sometimes it's a perspective thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think something that I'm hopefully looking to create here is a community, you know, the pod representing that community, to where somebody who is dealing with cancer can reach out to somebody else who is.
Yeah. You know. And then that's the thing, like, I mean, like, you know, even for me, like, I'm not overtly savvy with all the stuff either, but like, you know, I'm willing to put myself out there and then in a way that, hey, if it's going to help someone and they just want to bounce ideas or talk about stuff, what am I doing? I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm not working. So yeah, I can have a conversation. Like, why not? If that can help someone, then I think I'm open to that. Because I think at the end of the day, we all go through, you know, difficulties, right? And it's just like how right now there's like fires in LA, but it's just like, you know, you see people that are being there for each other. Like some guy was like all night and on his like roof, like watering his roof, and then he notices like his next door neighbors, like, so he's like watering his. It's kind of like that. Like you kind of, when you just do, you know. And I think doing is better than not doing. And also gives you purpose too. Right. Which is really hard to sometimes when you're in this situation, because everything is unknown. I mean, similarly, like it's, you know, I could be walking out there tomorrow and get hit by a bus. And then, you know, I'm worrying about what might be or what might not be, like in a month or now or 2 from now or 3 months from now. But that can also happen too. Right? So what is the one way that you can have a lasting impact is like how you impact others, friends, families, even not friends, like, you know, people that you don't know, but you just never know how, like sometimes a word or sometimes a gesture, or sometimes something may affect someone for the better. And then that's all we can wish for. Right?
No. I'm wondering if you even want to discuss family here. Is that something you want to talk about?
That one?
No, I don't mean specifics, but I mean, you know, what that has been throughout this whole journey. Because, you know, you talk about being in that club, and I'm sure even though you're surrounded by people that adore you and want to take care of you, is there, you know, is there still that loneliness because you are a part of that club? And maybe
there's a bit of that, because like those are the fleeting thoughts that kind of like do a flyby. Like say for example, like, you know, we have friends, right, kids that are graduating this year, and then they're like, oh, grad pictures, this and all that stuff, right? So the fleeting thought is like, well, I have a younger one, will I be here for that event? It's a fleeting thought, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that makes you feel lonely because, like, in a way, is like you see your friends with, you know, similar, like younger siblings or whatever, but they don't have cancer. So, I mean, but similarly, what I said before to you, any one of us next day could want, and bus comes and takes you, and that's the end, right? But the thing is, not having the cancer just makes you feel or think or feel that it's more like forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, or the chances of them being around is like forever. It's like more than yours. So there's a bit of like loneliness in that sense. But, you know, I have to quickly get myself out of that one because I find it that if I get stuck on that, then nothing good can come out of it. You know? So I can only focus on, like, right now, enjoy what I have, appreciate what I have. And, like, even right now, like, so just to give you an idea, like in August, I had to use a walker. I could barely walk up the street. I'm now walking like at least 2K in the morning, 2K in the evening with the dog.
Wow, that's awesome.
While we were in Hawaii, like I literally walk over 20,000 steps.
Wow. Per day.
Per day.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I went stand-up paddling.
Yeah.
I had a great time. I saw turtles come up. I saw 13 turtles come up. And again, look at where I was and look at where I am now. I don't want to focus on things that may not allow me to enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to enjoy, I just focus on those feelings, right? I'm like, okay, so next trip to Hawaii, you know, what am I going to do next when I go there, you know? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, I think before we spoke about counting blessings and journaling, like, have you still been doing that?
Yeah, I have, but I just like, while I was in Hawaii, I kind of got, like, in Christmas, got a little bit busy, so I kind of got, like, sidetracked to, like, not doing as much. So I want to get back to doing it again. But yeah, like, every day it's kind of nice to go through and just, like, put your thoughts down. And basically that helps you realize sometimes the little blessings that you didn't realize were there.
Right.
Like, just like how that day that we went stand-up paddling, I was like, okay, you know, I'll just go. But then this isn't a trip with my family. And then 2 turtles came up. And yeah, they come up for air, yes, right? But, like, it was fairly close to me, and they came up to air, and then they bobbed around for a while. And, like, I swear to God, I had like an eye to eye with a couple of them. And I was, like, ecstatic, right? But it's one of those things, too, like, you know, turtle didn't have to come up so close to me. But they did. So why is that, right? And because that's a blessing, you know. Having met the Hawaiian priest, it's a blessing. Yeah. Right? And so having friends, like my second trip that allowed me to go again, it's a blessing. You know, like finding cheap tickets to go, that was a blessing. You know, like if it felt like very serendipitous that things just kind of fell into place. And the timing, like when my friends were going to be there, and then I have flanking chemo appointments, and like right the day that I had to be back and right the day that I had to leave, like everything worked out.
Wow.
So it's like, again, serendipitous, right? Like, but if you're not open to seeing those things, then you, like, you know, you're not really being thankful, right? So
disregard it.
Yeah. So sometimes it's the smallest little things, right, that allows you to really, Be grateful, be in the moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's super good advice. Yeah. I think a lot of times when people are complaining about their days or their daily struggles, I think after we've chatted about all of this, like my perspective has changed. It's a lot grander than just what's immediately in front of me.
The minute stuff.
Exactly that.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly that. Yeah. And I think once once people get a grasp of that, you see it through a lens where you are counting the blessings, where you are thinking beyond just the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, and then that's the thing too, like similarly how you reached out to me. To me, like that was the most serendipitous thing because I was starting to feel, I had dealt with this whole hair situation, and then like I was starting to feel good. I was starting to get a bit more active, and then I was starting, not that I was getting bored. I mean, not that I don't have stuff to do around the home. Like I said, I can clean, I can declutter, like all those things that I should be doing. But like I kind of like, I'm not working anymore. It's not like I can't work, but it's harder for me to work like a high stressful job because at this point, I just want to not have that stress. And I think that what I tell everyone now is that as you go through your working life, right, you're going to get into situations where you're used to so much stress, and that's like your new normal. And on top of that, sometimes like you're already at max, but say something at work happens and then they just add on another one. And then if you're one of those people who are very diligent, good at your job or whatever, the people that can do stuff always end up doing more, right? Because people are like, oh yeah, that person can handle it. So, and so then if you have that, I'm not going to say no, because it's like part of you feels like, and that was my problem. Part of me felt like, well, I'm such a good little worker, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well, And then so you're killing yourself, like doing well, but to what detriment? So I think to me was my health was the detriment, right? And then that's why now, like, I can't work anymore because I don't want to put myself in that kind of a high cortisol stress level, standard that is, and because that has a direct implication on how it physically changes your cells and everything else, right? The chemistry, right? The body is like an amazing thing. Like it has, as much as it has negative things, it has positive things too. And so, but if you only allow the negative, like high stress, high whatever, then what are you breeding? You're just breeding more disease, right? And so for me, I'm like, you know what? Like I might not have that much time, like a whole lot of time left, but whatever I have, I'm going to try to live to the fullest. And so I'm trying to get rid of any of that kind of stress level. And that's important. That's really important.
Okay, here we go. Time for the close. I'm so not used to this. Like all of this came from me being inspired by you. I think, I signed up for the marathon for myself. And I think understanding your situation, I started the pod. Well, actually, before I started it, it was just I signed up for the marathon. I wanted to challenge myself. And I think understanding your situation and learning more about what you're dealing with, I really wanted to do more than just, check in. I wanted to build a community that reflected what you and I both experienced at the Manta Swim Club. And so, through the pod, what I would like to do is invite anyone who is watching to help us out in sharing the content, because I think outreach being one of the pillars of the pod, I want this to grow as much as possible in order to magnify what we're trying to achieve, building a community where cancer patient can reach out to cancer patients and build a connection there, or even have, people who aren't immediately faced with cancer to understand what's going on behind a lot of these stories and reach out a helping hand, or even just to understand and know more about what others are going through. And so through all of this, again, trying to fundraise for BC Cancer Foundation, funding cancer research, and then bring a positive outlook to all of this. So May 4th, I'll be running the BMO Vancouver Marathon. I invite anyone who's signing up for either the 8K, the half marathon, or the full marathon to sign up under the pod initiative when you do register. And if you're not going to participate and would love to support, we'd love to see you out there. And, I think money is always a tough thing, but I think donating to fund cancer research is huge. And so if you're generous and you feel like you want to help out, please donate to the charity or to the foundation through the link in the description. Never thought I'd ever say that in my life, but yeah, so the link to sign up under the pod will be in the description, as well as the link to fundraise. Thank you, Lucia.
Thank you, Colin.
And thank you for watching. Cut. Director as that's
Sorry.
no, that's fine.
Come on.
That'd be
Sorry.
a nice blooper, actually.
No. This way. Kai. Oh my God. Come on. No.
I'm so not used to this. Let's see.